What's going on, everyone? So tons of reports are coming in that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be big buyers going into the NBA trade deadline. And look, this makes a lot of sense. With Joel Embiid currently out of commission for who knows how long, I mean, there's concerns that he could even be out the entire season. Hopefully not, right? Hopefully he gets back sooner rather than later, but he's going to be out at least some significant time. And so Philadelphia is going to need to do something. There were a lot of questions of like, are they going to just kind of stand pat? There was a lot of times where it looked like the Sixers were just going to kind of ride this out, that they didn't want to make any like significant moves. They kind of prioritized the flexibility. They didn't want to give up any firsts or anything like that because, they wanted to wait for the big star, like a Donovan Mitchell or something like that. But with Joel Embiid going down, everything kind of changes, right? Luckily, Philadelphia had a good head start compared to a lot of these other teams. And luckily, the bottom half of the Eastern Conference is just atrocious. So Philadelphia will at least be a playoff team. There is the possibility that they fall into the play-in, which that is a little concerning. Sixers have on a 2-game losing streak. They're 30-19 at the time of recording this video. They are 7.5 games back of the 1 seed. They're still only a game and a half out of the 4, and then 2.5 games out of the 2nd. But realistically, they're probably not catching the teams in front of them, which are the Knicks, the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Celtics. So their best case scenario is locked in as the 5 seed. The Pacers are 3 games back. So if they can just kind of keep pace with the Pacers, no pun intended, then they should be the 5th seed. Worst case, you drop into the 6th seed, which I'm sure that they wouldn't want to play the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, but talk about an interesting matchup. As far as them falling into the play-in, they got a 3.5 game lead over the Orlando Magic. They have a 4.5 game lead over the Miami Heat. And then the Bulls, they're 8 games ahead of the Bulls for the 9th. So, bare worst case scenario, they fall into the 7th, 8th seed. But I think even without Joel Embiid, I think that they could kind of stay in that 5 to 6 range. They do have some talent. Maxi's playing out of his mind. But it does make sense that they need to make some trades. And now we got reports that they are having several targets. So the big report that just recently came out per Yahoo is the Sixers are targeting some guards and shooting. Buddy Hield and Bojan Bogdanovic, the Philadelphia 76ers are heavily interested in. Bojan Bogdanovic, I just don't see the Sixers getting for whatever reason, and it makes zero sense to me. Detroit is valuing Bojan like he's Giannis or something, or Steph, right? They want 2 firsts for Bojan. And even if they settled, right, they were offered a first-round pick by multiple teams last year and refused to trade him. So apparently they want to keep, vets, and they want to have vet guys on this young team, which if they were a middle-of-the-pack team, sure. But you're the worst team in the league. Embrace it this year. And then in the offseason, if you want to get some vets and you want to get some guys that kind of help be mentors to the young guys, then fine, go do that. But there's no reason they shouldn't be shopping Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks and getting whatever they can get for those 2 guys. Even if they end up with 4 seconds between the 2 of the guys, right? Do that. Because it's just silly to not do that. But for whatever reason, Detroit, I don't really, with Bojan, it's one of those things I got to believe when I see. Because they've gotten some good offers for Bojan and just have refused. So I just don't see that happening. Buddy Hield, on the other hand, I could see being a real option. Indiana's been more willing to keep him now that, they went and got Pascal Siakam and stuff like that. But look, he's probably leaving them in free agency. They weren't able to work out an extension, so they were actively trying to trade him. And so I think if the right deal was there, I think that they would be willing to get off of him. I think that they'd be willing to trade him. Indiana's kind of in that weird spot where they're good, but are they winning anything this year? Right? Are they really winning a championship this year? Probably not. Right? They're probably still a move or so away. So if they could get something for a Buddy Hield, and maybe even position themselves for a trade later on, or maybe get some piece that, you don't have the shooting Buddy Hield has. Maybe you get a little better defensively. I mean, I could see something along those lines happening. I just think Buddy Hield is more realistic for the Sixers, and I do think makes a lot of sense for the Sixers. Just have that sharpshooter, have that dead-eye guy that could just, play off ball, doesn't need the ball in his hands, get some buckets. Defensively, obviously, there's some issues and concerns, but still, I mean, the same thing with Bojan, right? You just need a guy that can come in and hit some open shots. So they make a lot of sense. The other big one is DeMar DeRozan. So there was a report the other day. I covered it here on this channel. If you want more information on that specific report, go check out the video after this one. But that DeMar DeRozan may potentially become available, and he's one of the few guys that the Sixers would be willing to give up a first-round pick for. That if they can get DeMar DeRozan for one first, that they may be willing to do that and get that deal done. Supposedly, Chicago is at least fielding offers and are more interested in trading DeMar DeRozan after Zach LaVine went down. Because the plan originally for Chicago was trade Zach LaVine, see how this plays out, and then figure out, do we need to get rid of DeMar, do we need to get rid of Zach LaVine, or Alex Caruso, Vu, all those guys. But then Zach LaVine ended up getting hurt, and they weren't really able to do anything. They were kind of on hold. And then Zach LaVine's out for the season, and they tried to work out a new contract with DeMar DeRozan, who twice publicly said he wanted to re-sign with the Bulls. The Bulls said publicly that they wanted to re-sign him, and they wanted him to retire a Bull. And supposedly, again, reports, take them how you want, DeMar DeRozan is a real risk of leaving in free agency because they weren't able to work out that extension. So now Chicago's willing to kind of listen to potential deals for DeMar. Based on what we're seeing from the reports, I think it's personally kind of one of those things where the Bulls are okay with risking DeMar leaving. They are, but if the right deal is there, they'll do it. Right? If they get something that they feel is, enough compensation for DeMar, then they would be willing to make the move to trade DeMar DeRozan. But if a team comes in with like a second-round pick or 2 seconds or whatever, then Chicago, which, I mean, you could argue Chicago might as well take whatever they can get rather than losing them for nothing, but I guess they're willing to kind of let them. Again, Chicago hasn't made the best decisions over the last, 10 years. I mean, they should have traded all these guys last trade deadline, and I was screaming for them to trade everybody in the offseason, and they didn't. And now, look, they're in the same situation that everyone knew that they were going to be in, and now none of their guys have really the value that they thought that they had. Where last trade deadline, you had several teams that were desperate that probably would have given you whatever you wanted for them. And then going into the offseason, you had some teams that really wanted to kind of make a push. Probably could have gotten rid of some of these guys. But nonetheless, here we are. Sixers, maybe they can go and get DeMar DeRozan. Personally, if I'm the Sixers, I'd rather get DeMar DeRozan than any of the other guys. Obviously, he's not the three-point shooter that the other two are, but his ability to just go get a bucket, show up, close down the stretch, take pressure off of Joel, take pressure off of Tyrese Maxey. Also, for being honest, Joel Embiid is known to just completely disappear at times in the playoffs. And so you're putting a ton of pressure on Maxey to basically be a superstar in those moments. And to kind of go get DeMar DeRozan, I think you have Maxey and DeMar now to where if Joel Embiid disappears, you have those two guys that can just go get buckets. DeMar's versatility, I think, would be very beneficial, right? Guy that can play the 2 through 4, basically. I think that'd be good. And he can even make plays. He's played point guard a lot, or at least initiator, right, for both San Antonio. He did that heavily, where he was kind of the only playmaker out there for San Antonio, and then he's done that quite a bit with the Bulls. So he can also be a guy that can make plays, be the secondary playmaker for them. I like the idea of DeMar on the Sixers, but look, they personally, if they want to take this season serious, I think they got to do something. The problem is that there's just no impact trades and moves. Right? The biggest name out there is DeJounte Murray, and I don't really like DeJounte Murray for the Sixers because, DeJounte Murray needs the ball in his hands, right? But Maxey's been so good this year. Are you going to move Maxey off ball and then DeJounte on ball? Because DeJounte Murray's biggest problem is playing alongside Trae Young and having to play so off ball so much, right? So I don't know. Is he the guy that that you want to go and give a bunch of picks for. It just doesn't make sense to me if you're the Sixers, right? I think if you can go get DeMar DeRozan for cheaper, go get DeMar, because he can play on ball, he can play off ball, he's a good ISO player, he's a guy that can make plays. I just think he'd have a bigger impact than DeJounte Murray. And I think he would help more in the scoring load when Joel kind of has those disappearing games, disappearing moments, right? He's a more veteran guy. Or just stand pat, right? Like, don't really do anything that's going to jeopardize anything. Keep the flexibility going into next season and just kind of see how things play out. Again, I don't think this team's winning a championship. I don't. Even with the healthy Joel Embiid, although Joel Embiid's been playing out of his mind, don't get me wrong. I just am not sold that they're a real championship contender, but you never know, right? I mean, look, we've seen stranger things. We've seen teams get into the postseason. Atlanta was in the conference finals a couple years ago, and they've been a play-in team since. You get a couple things that kind of fall your way. You get a couple, bounces of the ball. All of a sudden you're in the conference finals and you have a chance. So it wouldn't shock me if they got to the finals, but I'd be a little surprised if they actually won the whole thing. But you never know. This also could be good for the team as a whole, because now this team, everyone's going to have to step up. Everyone's going to have to play specific roles. Everyone's going to have to be better if they're going to want to stay alive and stay afloat. And then when Joel Embiid does come back, you have everyone kind of elevated and the team's kind of really meshed well and guys have embraced specific roles and whatnot. And you can kind of, I think it could be beneficial for the team. But obviously they're not better without Joel Embiid. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying this could be good for the team as a whole to kind of figure out and kind of get guys established for when Joel Embiid comes back. You're in a better position. But anyway, again, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you like the deal? Like them to go get a Boyan? Like them to go get a Buddy Hield? Do you want them to go get a DeMar DeRozan? Do you want them to just stand pat? Again, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate you all. See you in the next one. Thank you.